Okay, it's supposed to be live. Hello everyone. Did I actually start the stream? Yes, I did. Okay, perfect. Give me a second, guys. I'll just have this rolling in the background. Maybe I'm just gonna increase the volume. And we'll start in a sec. Hello. It's not even 7 o'clock yet, is it? Yeah, it's not 7 o'clock yet. Hello. Okay, I guess we can start. Let's see. So, let me get just the chat here on this screen. Yeah, 7 p.m. we can start. Just in the background, having a replay of the recent races we did at SUZUKA and Heusinkveld. And yeah, I'm gonna use a couple of the laps from the race itself to take a look at the track. Some good racing we had during that week, and yeah, just like last week, if anyone has a replay that later you would like to share, I could use it and go through it corner by corner as well. And we can do this sort of public coaching session, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, anyway, let's get into it. Like I said, right now in the background, this is some replay from one of the races I did with Jardier, actually. It was a Heusinkveld Data Lab Sprint Series, something like that. Very interesting championship where you were doing it in a driver swap sprint, but there were every single week there were 2 races in one evening, and one of them was reverse grid, which was great. This is not reverse grid, I just qualified like 17th. Anyway, but we're gonna take a look at one of the laps from this race. I mean, the laps weren't necessarily crazy, but they're just a great baseline on which I can just use to tell you all about SUZUKA, all its reference points, breaking points, some interesting stuff, and also in the race, with it being a replay of the race, I can show you more of like an actual, race happening and things being used properly, and difficult areas of the track actually being difficult for drivers, right? Because obviously it's all nice and dandy in the sterile environment when you're like hot lapping and practicing, and sure, then you want to execute everything perfectly, but here you can see I could find in the race so many examples of just a certain corner being a problem, and overall track is here was very slippery because it was cold, and Suzuka overall is a slippery circuit. So yeah, let's get into it. I think that showing you this that way from a race will be an interesting thing. That's exactly the case that at Suzuka, that it's very difficult to get it right. It's a long lap. It's difficult to put it together, but it also has tons of corners where not only one corner is that you can lose a lot of time on it, but then all those corners are connected, right? Like look at the entire first sector and those S's, right? One corner leads to another. There is a little straight after the first corner, but then the S is just one corner to the next and to the next and to the next, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners that are just connected one to another. So it's very difficult to put it all together there. And if you make a mistake on one of them, and that compromises your position into the next one, then already the next one is compromised. And if you don't get it together on this one, the next one will be also compromised, and so on and so on. So that's gonna be the S's. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. I think I'm gonna take a look initially at the lap 5 or lap 4. Lap 4, I think. I mean, that was just the start of the race. The start of the race itself was mental. Maybe I can share with that as well before we get actually into the cleaner laps that I was doing later. Because I mean the stuff was crazy, because obviously I qualified really poorly. I was like 17th, I think, and it was crazy because I had a really difficult time of trying to put myself in the correct position. I thought initially here when I was on the outside, when I got stuck behind that Lambo, I thought, shit, everyone's gonna now suddenly come to the outside and we're gonna get pinched here, but fortunately there was space here. Hello. And then I actually managed to get that Lambo that did a mistake. You could see how slippery it is as well, first lap, right? Just getting to the corner, the car sliding, Lambo's going wide. Now I'm trying to go around the Lambo, but it's so slippery there on the outside as well. It was a very tricky start. Then it all still bunches up. We go side by side through Degners. Then there's gonna be a contact ahead of us between the Lambos, I think, as well. No, actually, with the Ferrari and the Lambo. Then I managed to get to sneak into the inside, and then into the hairpin we also have a moment, because then I get pushed by the Lambo during the braking zone. I have to counter steer there, and I almost ran into the back of the Ferrari. It was a crazy start. Anyway, we get a couple of laps into the race, and I think from lap 4 there's going to be some clear laps. So let's get into it. Okay. Also, if at any point anyone has like some questions on or anything, please ask them. Because the whole point of this stream is so it's not only like my monologue, but you guys are here, it's live. You have some question regarding any thing here regarding Suzuka? Do you have some other question completely not even regarding Suzuka itself? Anything else? Please feel free to ask questions, and can be just a big ass Q&A, if you know what I mean. While in the background we can slowly go through Suzuka corner by corner. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Turn 1. Extremely fast entry, difficult with the stability of the car, and also you're trying to bring that speed into the corner, very, very deep into the corner without fucking up the exit. You want to brake as late as possible, but obviously the later you brake, the more difficult it gets, because you're no longer braking in a straight line. And it's very easy here to misjudge it just a little bit, and then you just get deeper to the corner as it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and the very little mistake can grow into a very big problem mid-corner if you run too wide, right? Okay, so where do you brake? Well, for the reference, I think it's very easy to use that road here on the outside, that access road. You can use that as sort of a reference at which point you want to start going from the outside of the track. And then also you'll start seeing the curb that's on the inside, and then you can start pointing the car from the outside, from that access road to the curb, and even while you're still turning, just slam on the brakes. Initially the car should be stable enough, so point it from the outside to the inside and get that first part of braking as straight as possible. It cannot be fully in a straight line, right? But just to not put the fully, like, throw the car in there and completely lose the rear end, just point it to the inside, then straighten out just a little bit, as much as possible, so the car is as straight as you can at the given moment, and just slam on the brakes, and then get the car slowed from the outside to the inside and then back to the outside in as straight line as possible. And then as you're getting to that outside and the corner is gonna start tightening up, here actually let off the brakes and get some stability back into the car, right? Because if you would keep on braking, it's gonna be very easy for you to lose the car in the mid corner as well. So from the outside to the inside, braking and then releasing the brakes, straight braking. Sometimes you feel like the car is going even more loose and you're losing the rear, just let off the brakes and the car will stabilize. If there needs to be any more braking done after you stabilize the car mid-corner, you can do a dab of the brake here a little bit to get the car back to the inside and aim for the apex. That is quite late in the corner, considering, you know, you start braking here and the actual apex you're slowing down towards is gonna be all the way here, right? So that is a very, very long braking zone and a long deceleration zone throughout the entire turn one. And just as you're gonna come back to the inside of the that inside curb, you can start applying the power. And at SUZUKA, be very patient with the throttle and be really smooth with the throttle, because the surface on SUZUKA is so slippery and overall it's such a low grip track. So you have to really make sure that whenever you're applying power, the car has to be as straight as possible, which is also difficult at this track, because every single acceleration zone, it's still while you're turning quite a lot, and sometimes it's off camber. Quite a lot of the times it's actually off camber, and the rear is loaded up extremely heavily, so it's very easily to overwork the rear tires and just ask too much out of them. And they just cannot work well in both directions, both laterally and longitudinally. So you have to be really careful with how much you're applying the throttle. Be patient with it, be smooth with it, and as you're going smoothly on the throttle and you're feeding in the power to the car, nicely release the steering to the outside of the track, opening up the exit, so you're allowing the car to just apply all that power. And even then, the car will be trying to get from underneath you, so be careful. And that's the run. Just throw the car into the corner, stabilize it mid-corner, aim for the second apex, be patient with the throttle, and when you feel like it's time, just go on it. Sometimes when it's getting away from you, just be patient with the throttle, but if you're gonna prepare the exit nicely so you're able to here open up the corner and go to the outside curb, and just release the steering, release the load, the lateral load on the rear axle, it will nicely do the work for you in a longitudinal direction and allow you to accelerate out of the corner with no problem. Okay, now the S's. Like I said at the beginning, every single corner is connected, right? So it's very important to get into the first S properly, and that's gonna allow you to have a good flow into the next one, into the next one, into the next one, because they're all connected. So how you're gonna enter the first S is gonna determine how you're gonna exit that first S, and then your exit out of the first S is gonna determine your track position, or car positioning, right? Position on the track into the next one. So you can see there's a lot of camber on Suzuka in many places. Sometimes it's in your favor, sometimes it's not. But there are a lot of places where there is camber. It's very subtle, but it's there, and it's important to use it. So for example, here you would like to take a nice swing from the outside of the track, but actually go into that corner and try to attack the apex sooner than you would expect it to be, because then you're gonna get into the camber here on the inside. The car is gonna nicely grip up, and then it's gonna hook up into this corner really nicely. Don't go too wide, because you straight away get into the next corner. And overall, try to carry as much speed as possible through here, so you just end up positioned somewhat like that into the second S. The more speed you carry into there without compromising obviously that the car positioning, the better. Because like here you don't really need to prepare an exit, you don't need to start gaining momentum from there, so you can take all the speed through there as much as possible. Quick transition, flick into the right, hug that curb. You don't need to go all the way to the outside on the second S, because you need to now take a swing again to the left, to the right, and prepare the next left-hander. Open up a little bit, and now here, where to aim. When I'm driving, you can see that this corner has a little bit of AstroTurf on the inside, and I'm just kind of aiming to hit the apex just when that curve right here is, and where that green part of it starts, right? So as I'm attacking that corner, I'm getting closer and closer to the inside, and I'm just climbing that curb here as that green part starts. That's what I'm aiming for. So when I'm driving, just when I'm preparing here into this corner, when I'm doing the flick into the left, that's where I'm aiming at. I'm looking at that curve that's right there, and I'm aiming for that part here. That here I'm hitting that part, and right after I climb on it and I'm climb off it, then I start reaccelerating to the outside. Again, not fully to the outside, just leave half a car's width, something like that as well, just to open and up the next one just a little bit. And the next one is gonna be sort of a double apex. I know that on that particular app I didn't do such a great job of it, but it is sort of a double apex. It's good to think about it in this way. You still are hugging the inside a lot, right? But just think about it as the double apex, because you're gonna initially go into it quite hot. You're gonna hit the first apex somewhere around here, right? Then as you're decelerating, you're gonna go wide, and as you're going slower and slower and slower, you're gonna tighten up the corner all the way throughout it as you're decelerating, all the way somewhere to where that Lambo is, that green Lambo, white Lambo with green roof, and you're gonna hit the second apex right here. Alright? So you're gonna go in hot and then decelerate throughout the whole thing and tighten up all the way to that second apex. And then from that second apex, you're gonna accelerate and keep it tight still to get to maximize the exit out of the last test, right? So into here, the curb here, leave a tiny bit of space, then carry a lot of speed in, decelerate throughout, hit the first apex, go a tiny bit wide. As you're decelerating, tighten up and hit the second apex. You're going wide in the middle ever so slightly. If I can show you maybe the next lap, if I did it and it was a tiny bit more pronounced there, right? So attack it a lot, then you miss it a little bit, right? It's just a little bit, and you're tightening up all the way to late in the corner, and then as you hit that second apex, you accelerate and keep it tight to open it up nicely, right? On that next lap, it was nicely shown and a bit more pronounced how I did that there. Anyway. Now this one, oh my god, this corner is so bad. It's super tricky, but it's important that if you can get really those references here nailed, if you can really get a hang of them, that will allow you to position your car here and prepare that exit out of the first sector in a way that's just gonna allow you to do it so much more consistently. So just open it up, go from the outside, throw the car in, off throttle to low as the truck is going, starts going up the hill. The front of the car loads up, front axle loads up. You can go off the throttle, maybe even a dab of the brake sometimes. Go off the throttle, load up front axle, wait a little bit for it to grip up. When it finally grips up and you hit the curb fully, you can go on the power there. If you get the timing right, if the line is right, the car shouldn't have any sort of problem with applying the power. If you do it too late, right? If you do it too late, and suddenly you'll find yourself in the situation where here you have to turn too much in the middle of the corner, and you're gonna overload the rear axle laterally, then you're not gonna be able to accelerate efficiently and ask from the tire the grip in the longitudinal direction, right? Because it can only work at 100% in one direction. Either laterally or longitudinally. It can do a bit of that and a bit of that at the same time, sure, but not all of it in one longitudinally and all of it laterally. So it has to be a balance with how you're working your rear tires, and for that you just need to prepare a nice line that's gonna ensure that when you're going here on power, you're not still in need of rotation. The car needs to be already rotated into the corner and put on the right line with that transition that you're doing here. You're putting the car on the line, then you're loading up the front tires, you're going off the throttle, the car rotates nicely, then it sets the car onto a correct line. You point the car at the curb, and from there on you can accelerate and release the steering nicely towards the outside of the track. And obviously do it in a way that you're trying to carry as much speed out of there. Let me show you entire assets from the outside just to so you can see the flow of it. It's very easy here to lose time by overdoing it, but it's also extremely easy to lose time here by just not attacking the track enough, right? Because there's so many places in Sector 1 where it's just all about how much speed you carry in there, right? But at the same time, it's very difficult to do it, and if you do it wrong, you're gonna pay the price on the exit part of each phase of that sector, right? Because here you want to carry that speed through the entry. Like, look how long that entry is, because it's all the way to here, and throughout all that entry you just want to carry as much speed in there as possible and push the deceleration further and further into the corner. And then the same here, if you're not gonna attack it too much and you're just gonna overslow the car, the speed is not gonna be carried through. Same here, you just need to attack it and throw the car in. The track suddenly here in the middle goes down, starts going down the hill, and the car unloads, so it's gonna be difficult to it's gonna be easy to hear if you overdo it, just in the middle of the corner, lose the car as it will start just going light and have no grip. So you're here just keeping sometimes a bit of brake pressure just to keep the front loaded up towards that apex late in the corner, right? But there needs to be speed carried through on on those entries that are very, very long. Because other times otherwise, even if you focus just on the exit, the time that you will bleed in the middle of the corner, it will cost you, and there is a lot of it. I mean, like a lot of it. And obviously, it's very common for people to drive in a way that they slow down the car early in the corner, then they cruise through the corner at sort of a static speed, only then they accelerate, right? SUZUKA S is going to be a prime example of that, where people are just gonna stop braking and stop decelerating into the corner and do the deceleration way before those corners, then cruise through the middle while they're just waiting for the understeer or waiting for the front end to just grip up, and only then they're gonna go on the throttle. And that kind of driving will also make the problem that they're having, which is the understeer that they're waiting for, even more so difficult, right? Because by throwing the car into the corner like that, right, I'm putting a lot of load onto the front tires. I'm allowing them to grip up. Here as well, I'm throwing the car into the corner and I'm trying to keep the load on the front tires, so the car digs into the corner and keeps, and I can keep it tight on the exit throughout it, right? If there wouldn't be a load put on the front axle, and the car would be just stabilized, overly stabilized, there would be no front end to turn the car. Then you would have to wait and wait and wait for the corner extremely long for the front to finally grip up, for the car to rotate, and you would not be able to, and you would just lose so much time just waiting, doing nothing. And it would already feel like, well, that's all the car can do. Well, in reality, you actually have to be more aggressive. You just put the load into the car and basically produce grip by loading up the tire that's doing all majority of the work at the given moment. Same here, right? Just as you're turning in, just as the front tires will have the most amount of grip, you lift, you turn in, you time it all in the correct way, so at that very moment where you want the front tire to grip up the most, that's where you're giving it the most of grip. So the timing is key. Okay, Degners, all about commitment, just all about how much speed you can carry through here, and obviously it's gonna depend on the car, depend on the setup, but you need to be careful with how much curb you're taking, and not take the curb at too high of an angle, because the rear is gonna bounce here a little, right? So as the front is going over the curb, and as it settles after the curb, so the front grips up, and then the rear bounces, and the front turns, but the rear is just doing that bounce. The front end goes in if you're still turning, right? But the rear end gets a bounce, and it wants to it wants to go left. So there could be some over rotation as the car lands, which is extremely common here. I mean, you can see that almost every lap, that just as the car lands, it does that snap. A lot of cars do that on every single lap, and you just have to be very wary of how much it's gonna do each lap, because it's very difficult to do it consistently. If you minimize the angle, if you open up the corner as much as possible, so go from the very outside, go for a very nice wide line, that's just gonna minimize the angle throughout the whole corner, and you'll be fine. It is gonna bounce a little, it's always gonna do it, but just minimize the risk by doing as much of a sweeping line as possible. And obviously a 50-meter board here is just a great reference. Just as you're approaching it, go on the brakes, throw the car in, then as you're climbing through it, you can already start going on the throttle, so the car, as it's squatting, it gets stabilized. And obviously make sure you're not running too wide. What are the limits here? So the track limit is gonna be that red and white curb, and you have to have at least 2 tires still on that curb. Here as you're exiting the first Degner. You cannot have the tires on the green Astro here at all. You have to have them on the black and... sorry, on the black? No, red and white curb. With black in some places where the rubber is, right? But obviously this is in a race scenario, so I'm not pushing my luck not to get any warnings, and I'm just following the train of cars. So just, you can see, no risks taken, just taking it nice and easy in a racing scenario, especially because there is time to be gained there. Sure, there is a lot of time to be gained there if you just fully throw the car in, but in the race it's just risky, no point. Right. You can see every single lap it just does that bounce. But anyway, second Degner. A very similar corner, it's just that there's a acceleration zone after it, while through this corner you can carry a lot of speed in, because it's just about here stabilizing the car and using as much of the track. But throughout the corner there is no acceleration zone after, you just need to carry as much speed through there, because it just leads straight away to the next braking zone. So here it's not like you're preparing the exit, here you're carrying the speed throughout the whole thing, and here you're just stabilizing it on the exit. And obviously there is a tiny bit of the straight and you cannot, like, you know, go through it without braking. It's a corner, you need to brake into it, but overall you're trying to maximize the speed in rather than speed out. You're maximizing how much speed you're carrying through the entry without going too wide. Okay, well, braking point for the second Degner. That's tough. Because there is little, but I mean, you can sort of just judge the distance from where you are to where the curb ends. Are there any reference you can really take on the outside of the track? It's very difficult because there are no really markings, no braking boards, so you just have to get the feel for the distance between you and that curb end, or just you and the apex, because you should be already looking at the apex, and just try to judge the distance as best as possible. There's little references that you can actually take here as braking markers. And already as you're gonna be braking, make sure that the tires are not on the curb. It was more of a big thing in 1.8 before 1.9 update, where the cars were struggling with clearance of that curb, that as you were going here on the brakes, the front splitter was pushed into the ground and you could bottom out easily on that curb. It's no longer the case. But do the braking with the tires, with each tire left side being on the left side of the curb, right side tires being on the right side of the curb. So as you're going on the brakes, the tires are not rattling over the curb, because that's just gonna ruin your braking phase. Only obviously as you're getting later into the corner and you start trail braking, obviously you need to cross that curb. But as you're doing initial braking, you can just have that curb in the middle of the tires. And you can take quite a bit of the next inside curb, but not too much. Usually I'm aiming so I still have like half the car of it, just to make sure that I'm not that the car is not lifting too much, so the front tire still is fully in contact with the road, because obviously the front tire here is loaded up the most. I mean, rear is loaded up as well, right? But still, as you're still trail braking on the entry, because I should brake a tiny bit deeper into there. But as that front tire is taking the load, I don't want to cut too much, because then the front end rises and the front gets unsettled. So you can cut quite a lot. It's not a problem. Every car can take it. But overall, personally, I find it that if I try to push my luck too much, then the front can get unsettled and it's gonna be inconsistent. Because that front could get unloaded and then the car suddenly washes out mid-corner as you're going off the curb. And overall, since there is camber in the road there, the outside tires will be nicely loaded up, and you can carry a lot of speed through there without cutting too much. It's more about prioritizing here the exit. Again, as you're going on the throttle, remember, it's slippy. Yes, you have camber in the road initially in the middle of the corner, that will help you. But as you're going closer and closer to the exit, that camber decreases. And it's going to be very slippery. So as you're going off the corner, straight away straighten out the steering, because it's going to be very slippery. And the track limits is going to be the same as the first Degner, right? So you have to have two inside tires still on the red and white curb, and it's very easy to go off the track here, both in first Degner and in the second Degner. And also you can get a double warning here, remember. So the game treats this corner exit as also the corner entry into the next one. So if you go wide here and you gained time throughout the whole corner, well, you gained time through the first Degner, so that's a warning. But then if you go also wide here and you gain time through the second Degner, well, that's also a warning, because you went off the track on the entry and again gain time there, right? So it's very easy here to just go wide, not do any lift, gain time, and then you gain time through both the first Degner and the second Degner, and you get two warnings in one go. So that's something to watch out for, and just in the race, take it easy for those corners. Unless you really need to push, it's better to just take it easy for the Degners, because it's not worth pushing your luck. Just aim for clean lines and clean exits. Okay, hairpin. Quite a straightforward hairpin, but with a bit of caveat on the entry. Just as you're passing through that curb on the inside, straighten out the car, slam on the brakes, straight line braking. Initially stay on the outside of the track as much as possible, right? But then look how, again, there is a little bit of that camber on the inside, right? And here on the outside, the track is still camber but quite flat, and then on the inside here there is a lot of that camber, right? So on the outside initially it's quite flat, and then here on the inside it's cambered quite a lot. So we're gonna get to the inside a lot sooner than you think, just to attack that corner and slow down throughout the corner and use that camber of the road as you're trail braking, and slow down throughout the entry, and go in early and slow down throughout the entry, and that camber is gonna help the front end to grip up and slow the car down, because you're just gonna gain a lot of grip. For example, I can show you another lap. I think that was our in lap or the lap before here. How the Lamborghini ahead of me was going for a lot wider line, and you can see how much time he just lost throughout the first part of the hairpin compared to me, while his exit wasn't necessarily that much better, right? So here the Lambo ahead of me is really opening up that corner, missing it almost, So then he's getting the car rotated, and presumably he's trying to get the better exit here, right? And sure, he's getting the somewhat of a better exit, but like I'm straight back on his ass, and he was a lot further ahead of me going into the hairpin, right? So the time that you can gain on the entry here because of that camber is quite substantial. And sure, you're gonna lose on the exit just a tiny bit, but not as much as you can gain there if you would just, like that Lambo, completely miss that entry to go for a late apex and then accelerate, right? Because there was just so much time lost there, for example. So that's a great comparison there. Obviously, don't completely overcook it, because remember that you want to be already accelerating and you want to have already the car rotated in the mid corner, right? So here in the middle of the hairpin, already here I'm already going on the throttle and accelerating, right? But I'm just saying that you don't need to go very wide around the outside. You can actually attack the corner quite early, get into that camber of the road, and it will help you out on the entry. Let's go back to that lap 4 I was initially going with. So hard on the brakes, deep into the corner. In the McLaren, you can actually use second gear on the exit here, because just the first gear is gonna spin up the rears a lot. Traction controller intervene a lot, and then the shift up into the second gear will, on top of it, trigger traction control, and then the shift itself will take time and rob the momentum gain out of the car. So in McLaren it's just better to just second gear out of the corner. It has so much torque in the mid-range. Sure, it seems like RPM are low. Yes, they are low, but the car still has the torque, and the TC is still working overtime. So in McLaren at least it's worth it. Okay, spoon. I actually have a lap that was also that lap. I was behind that Lambo on the in lap. Next one, yeah, where I did quite a decent spoon. Always the exit is an issue, right? Because similarly to turn 1, everything you do throughout the corner is gonna determine how you're gonna be positioned out of the exit. But the exit is gonna be so much more crucial there, right? Because in turn 1, I mean, the exit sometimes is gonna be compromised, sometimes you're gonna really nail the exit. The exit is not gonna be really that crucial to get it done perfectly, because there's gonna be a little bit of a straightaway between the first corner and the second corner, but here is gonna be way more important how you position yourself and throw the car into the S's, and the S's themselves are gonna be more important. And throughout in third 1, entire deceleration zone and how you can manage to rotate the car through the corner to that point is going to be way more crucial than the exit itself. Well, throughout spoon, that's still going to be the case on the entry, but with that additional exit that is also so crucial, and it has and it's off camber, so it's even more difficult. So look at it throughout the entry. It's gonna be again that corner, and from the outside you're braking while turning throughout the whole corner. Then you stabilize the car a little bit, part of the corner where you just accelerate a little bit, then you continue decelerating to the very, very late apex, and then you go on the throttle, and the exit is extremely difficult because the track starts going down the hill. There is negative camber here in the middle of the corner, and just that the truck goes from underneath you, and it's very difficult to put the power down there. And because the whole entry is so long, how you're gonna position the car on the exit is gonna be heavily determined. When you started braking, how much speed you carried into the corner, how wide did you go, what did you do on the curb, which the curb likes to unsettle the car a lot. I'm gonna quickly show you in a sec what I use as references to nail the positioning here. But if you do everything correctly, look how smooth everything looks. From the entry, smooth deceleration, little acceleration, but then nice again, smooth, very long deceleration to the point, bam, there's an apex, go on the throttle, play a little bit with the inputs to make sure that the car grips up, but just all nice, nicely done fluent. After I'm done with my lap, I'm gonna show you one more lap from Grantas. He was doing the laps he was doing in the second race. I have another replay because he was on fire that night. He was driving so nicely, so I'm gonna show you how smoothly he drives, because he's driving a lot more smoothly than me. His driving style is so much more smoother, and it suits SUZUKA a lot better than my driving style. I always struggle with SUZUKA myself personally. Okay, so well, for braking reference, that's quite easy. So you're just looking at that curb on the outside. It's not really a curb, right? Just a bit of green paint, green astroturf, and obviously that escape road, that service road on the outside. So you're looking for those as your reference. Just as you're about to pass them, you're going on the brakes. In quali, you're gonna do that even later, and you straight away start pointing the car to the inside, and you're decelerating, and your first part of the corner, right? First part of the corner is gonna be all about, again, carrying the speed into the corner. There is no real acceleration zone here after the first part of spoon, so here you're gonna try to carry as much speed into the corner, as deep into it as possible, right? So the deceleration zone is not gonna be here and then you're hitting like an apex and then you're accelerating out of it. You're gonna be decelerating throughout that corner as deep into it as possible. Obviously it's not possible to brake lane throughout the corner, brake all the way to the outside. That's not possible, it's just too tight of the corner. But you want to go as deep into it as possible. Then in the middle there's gonna be a brief moment when you still want to accelerate, just a little bit of a straightaway between the first part and the second part. But throughout the first part we want to prioritize the entry, prioritize the speed on the entry, and then for the second part, well, it's gonna be all about getting the car on the correct line. So then somewhere around, well, exactly where that car here is on the inside, you can just then get on the power, get all the traction down, and then you can carry all the speed from the exit all the way to 130R. So on the brakes, to the inside, decelerating throughout the corner, getting to the outside, a little bit of a straightaway, so go on the throttle. The track limits are again the same. Two tires need to be on the red and white curb, right? So this is how wide you can go. And look here, yeah, where that curb also ends, where that curb ends. I'm using that as reference to when I want to turn in for this corner, because it's so blind and it's so difficult to have any sort of reference to when to turn in and get the timing right? So what I do is I look for that corner, and I'm aiming for the outside tires to follow basically that curb ending, as it's going from those white arrows here to the inside. I'm trying to make the outside tires basically follow that path. That's the reference I'm using, and it's working for me really well. I remember when we were practicing for SUZUKA this season for SRO. I mean, I don't know why I never thought of that, but suddenly it just struck me. I was like, wait, that's exactly the line I'm taking. Why the hell I'm not using it as a reference? This is so easy. And then I was just looking at it, and every single time just putting my wheels there, and that was positioning my car so perfectly into that into that left-hander, into that second part of spoon, I was able to get the exits and the apex here so much more consistently. I mean, I am running the game quite on very high settings, so the shadows are quite decent. But I mean, I wouldn't say they're that great. I mean, even like like for example, wow, why is the inside of the arch lit up, right? That's not supposed to be like that. But it's a pretty good looking game. I mean, it's an Unreal Engine doing its job. So that outside curb, that's what I'm using to get the timing right and the car positioning right for the next one. And just as I'm about to go off that curb, slight up of the brakes, but very slight, right? And as I'm going on the brakes as well, I'm straightening out the steering. Because here, the front is suddenly gonna get loaded up, and I'm on the curb that's really unsettling the car. I am on that curb because I want to open up the car as much as possible, and also I ended up on it because I was carrying a lot of speed on the entry, which was the priority there. So, for the sake of being able to carry as much speed as possible and open up the exit, I am using that curb, but obviously the curb itself is very rattly and it can unsettle the car easily, so watch out. So as you're going on the brakes and as you're crossing over that curb, it's very easy for the car to get unsettled and you can lose the rear end. So be very wary here with your inputs and be very gentle. As you're doing that dab of the brakes to get the front end to bite into the corner as you're going off that curb, be very careful because it's gonna grip up a lot. So just as I'm turning a lot, then I'm going on the brakes, just making sure the car is stable, straightening out the steering, getting the car in, being patient, short shift, because short shifting in McLaren is just so good. Second gear would be just too low. And look how early before the exit I am, right? The exit curve is all the way there, and I'm already on the throttle, right? I mean, SUZUKA has tons of those corners that are so long. So on that curb, very wary on the inputs, dab of the brakes, get the front pointed in, waiting for the apex, and now approaching that apex that's quite blind, going already on the throttle, releasing the steering to the outside, and you can see how the car is just very struggling to put that power down, because the truck suddenly starts going down the hill, so the rear is just really loose there. Yeah, glad you're enjoying it. That's what the streams are for. Okay, 130R. Okay, maybe not this lap because I was just following the guy, so a lot of dirty air, and I already had a warning, I guess, for track limits, so I didn't want to risk it. But on this lap, I think it was decent. And well, it's all about the timing on 130R and not being too crazy with the inputs, because if you just throw it too much, it's gonna slide, it's gonna snap, and obviously it's easy to also touch the grass on the outside. Okay, so what's happening here? 50-meter board, dab of the brakes, or just a lift. Am I actually braking here? No, I'm not braking. Okay, I do touch the brakes, but wow, I tapped the brakes by 3%. Amazing. I mean, in my head, like, I need to look at the replay to know if I'm braking here, because in my head it doesn't work like that. Like, what inputs I use, I will only see in the replay. I have a lot of the times I remember when doing coaching or whenever someone's asking if I'm like braking for a certain corner, it's like 50-50 if you use the brakes or you don't use the brakes. I don't really know. Like, I need to look at the replay to ensure myself what I'm actually doing. It's just happening in the back of my head, right? It's just a process that's happening subconsciously. What I'm thinking about is decelerating and putting the load on the front tire, and then the inputs that are making the car do a certain behavior that I'm asking it to do, those inputs are just happening naturally. Yeah, so we're gonna get to it on the exit. So 50-meter board, flick the car in, go off throttle to make the car really dig into it. And in 1.9, I mean, are there really cars that are gonna be like super difficult for 130R? I don't think so. Like in 1.8 there were some cars, in 1.7 especially, where you would go off throttle and do a very wrong timing, take the curb wrong, and the car on the entry would just snap. In 1.9 the snappiness of the cars is not really an issue. I mean, if you really do it wrong and you time it wrong and you ask too much steering out of the car too aggressively, sure, it's gonna do something. If you go off the throttle maybe in too aggressive way, like a Merc, maybe. How are the Mercs taking 130R, by the way? Because I would assume that will be a sketchy car for there. Yeah, they need to be... Fuck me, that has so much aero, that car. I mean, just look how it rotates. It's an understeer car, but it just sticks to the ground. So, for example, Grantas is not downshifting. I'm downshifting to... I don't know, it just helps with my flow, helps me get the timing of everything, just to get that slightly bit more rotation that I would like. Just some extra engine braking on the rear axle to slow down the car and maybe induce some more rotation into the corner on the entry. But then on the exit I'm upshifting anywhere, because that's where the torque is. In the 5th gear here, was the RPM? It's gonna be like 7.2, 7.3. Yeah, and that's too high. So you want to be in the 6th gear anyway. But you can see, for example, there are two ways. I was always downshifting because it just helps me with the timing, and with just that extra rotation that I want. While, for example, Grantas here with 6th gear, you can see how much less aggressive he is. He's just nicely going in there with that 6th gear, while I'm throwing the car in a lot more, and I'm a bit more aggressive. That's just a driving style. We're ultimately asking the car to do the same thing. I'm just a bit more aggressive on the entry. They're being more progressive and gentle with it. But like I said, it's not really an issue in terms of stability if you don't touch the grass there for majority of the cars. So 50-meter board, go off throttle, go in, point the car to the inside curb. You can touch the inside curb, the car will settle in the middle of the corner easily, and you'll be fine. And just as you pass that, go back fully on the throttle, and now exit curb. So the part that is really making the rear slide, I think, is that those triangle things. I mean, they are not really triangles. It's just they're just painted like that. It's just paint. But they are ultimately what is making it slide, I think. I mean, it's the same curve repeated. It's not different. It's differently painted. It might look like from this perspective like it's sort of a different curve. It's just double the same curve. But when you are going over that outside curb with the tires, and I think also, especially on that part that's very, very high, right? If you have just the outside tire right on the edge of that, right? Well, you can see how the outside tire is riding it, and here this can get very sketchy. Obviously, in the replay isn't refreshed fast enough so you can see the movement, but the dampers are taking in all of that, and the tire model and the tire surface and the tire just carcass is taking it all in. But sometimes it seems like it either bugs out or it cannot handle all those very high oscillation just rattle, let's say, and it just gives out as you're going, I don't know, as you're climbing on it or you're climbing off it, and then the rear could snap, right? That's usually what happens. So be very careful there, that when the rear is just crossing, when the rear outside tire, if it's crossing that curb, if it's climbing it, or if it's climbing it back, or it's going off it, it's very easy for it to suddenly, the edge of the tire grab that curb in a weird way, and I mean, you're going to 50 kph, the tire is heavily loaded up on a aero-driven car with higher aerodynamic load on top of already lateral load that you're putting into the tire. You can expect some things to maybe not properly work out, right? It cannot take it all, especially if you're gonna, if the car is gonna be at high yaw angle, right? If there's gonna be a lot of angle put into the car here. So if you're gonna be turning here a lot, the car is gonna be yawed additionally. It's gonna be very easily for it to just suddenly snap. So keep the car as parallel with that curb as possible, and just release the steering, so you're not like aggressively going back from that curb onto the track. Don't go aggressively back onto the track, because then you're gonna cross it, put a lot of angle into the car, yaw the car in regard to that curb, and then you could just make it either go off that curb or climb it in a really weird way, and the inside sidewall of the tire is gonna grab that curb in a weird way, and you could have a moment. So just watch out. Did I have any moments in that particular stint? I don't remember in that particular race having any sort of moments with that. Yeah. Oh, you could see? I mean, you can see how sort of initially, like suddenly here, it goes straight, and then it goes again. Let me show you in slow motion, right? As I go here on the outside, now the car suddenly starts going straight. You see? Now I'm turning in, but suddenly the car washes out to the inside, and then it grips up suddenly and cuts back into the track. So just keep it as straight as possible. And well, you know, you are crossing that curb. What can you do about it? Like, that's just the way you're going through the corner. So either make sure that you are using all the track limits possible. So use even more than that. Actually make the outside tires go past that curb, because what I'm doing here is actually driving right exactly over that curb here, right? And right as I'm going over that curb, and the rear is really going over those high areas of the curb. I mean, the rear tire is getting huge workout right here. And I'm just basically taking a line that's just asking for it to go wrong. So either go in a past that curb, because you can have the inside tire on the red and white. So go past it, and then really make sure that when you're coming back, you're not doing it in any aggressive way, or do it in a way that you're not using that curb altogether. But that's not worth it, really, right? Here we're behind Lambo. I mean, here I'm just gonna back out because there's no way of pushing my luck. At some point, it's gonna want to kill you just a little bit. It's not a problem. You can definitely feel when it's happening. When it's happening, you can straight away straighten out the car. It's gonna stabilize. There's gonna be a little bit of movement at the rear. But come on, the race car is moving at all time. It's nothing crazy. Just be have that in the back of your head that it is a thing. So don't be surprised that if you like do a sudden input of the car here as you're going off that curb, or as you're climbing that curb, or you're going off that curb back to the track, don't be surprised if something happens. But it's not really an issue if you take it easy and just straighten out the car as you're going over it. Okay, chicane. Well, lap 4 chicane was absolutely awful. Let's see if lap 5 was better. I think lap 5 was better. And God knows what's the breaking point for that. I don't know. Like, I actually don't know what's the breaking point for last chicane. Of course, the reference is gonna be 100 meter board and 150 meter board. The breaking point is gonna be sort of 140-ish. I mean, I'm actually pressing the brake just as I'm passing 150 meter board. So that could be a reference. But the thing is, I'm pushing the brake as I'm passing the 150 meter board, right? But like I'm here and 150 meter board is already here at 250 kph. It feels like I'm well past 150 meter board because everything is happening so quick. But it is sort of a reference that you can take into account and have in the back of your head that just as you're passing 150 and you're leveled with it, which will feel like a lot past 150, you can start braking. You can maybe, I guess, look at that asphalt or concrete patch on the right hand side of the track, and as you're just passing it, you can use that as a reference. Straight line braking, and brake and stay on the outside of the track, right? You're kind of braking like diagonally, right? Because you're coming from that 130R, and obviously since you don't want to do any like crazy stuff here, you're gonna be in the middle of the road as you start braking. So you start braking, you brake to the outside of the track, and now last chicane. There's a lot of cutting to be done here. There's a lot of cutting to be done here because you can cut all this you can cut. So you can have the tires on that green part a little bit, but it's very inconsistent, and I never got to know in detail where exactly the limit is. But red and white part, that's easy. You can easily have the tires on the red and white part. So I went back in the replay a bit too much. So from the outside of the track, trail braking as you're turning in. So just as you start turning in, you can start trail braking, right? So as I'm starting turning in, I start trail braking, and I cut all the curb. As long as I have two tires on the red and white, so I can cut quite a lot, and that is gonna allow me to have the car positioned for the next part of the chicane so much better. Because look, I'm more to the right of the track than to the left. I cut so much. It really ensures that my positioning here is really nice. So I cut quite a lot, and now this is open up in a way that I can again turn in quite early, and this is gonna be the same. Put your outside tires on the red and white, and if you do it in a way that's like half-asked, so you're just gonna have the outside tires just on the edge of it, the car's not gonna like it. So you have to really fully commit to it and have both tires on the red and white, but then obviously you're risking that if you do it a tiny bit too much, there's gonna be a cut, and it's easy to do. But if you do it sort of a half-ass, that you're just going with the outside tires just on the edge of that curb, well, they're not gonna like it, because ultimately those are the outside tires. They're loaded up in the left-hander, and then it's gonna climb onto it and climb off it in a really wonky way. But if you properly commit into it, it will take it nicely, and it will also climb off it nicely. It's always gonna bounce a bit. I mean, you're cluttering the curb. Don't expect the car to fully just glide through it like it's nothing, right? But the line advantage from it is huge. I mean, look at the corner. If you would like to go all the way around, or if you can just, well, basically fucking straight line it. If you like, think about it, you can have outside tires on the red and white. So let me actually detach the camera from the car. I mean, like, obviously you want to cut it. Like, it's a huge advantage, and also a big advantage because that exit curb is so, can fuck up your exit so easily. This will help with your positioning here on the exit so much, because now I have the car that's on the exit that's not like pointing fully to the left, which would be the case if I'm going like long way around the outside. The exit would be very tight, and then at the exit my car would be pointing to the to the left, to those grandstands there. I have the car that's already, the rotation is done, and now I can, in a straight line, already accelerate, and because the car wasn't pointing left too much, well, now this corner I'm minimizing any sort of weird slides that could happen, because it's still Suzuka surface and it's very slippery here. So that downhill right-hander, if you ask too much out of the rear tires, they will let go. What some people do as well here, I don't know if Grantas does that on does this on this particular lap, where he's going for an overtake on this particular lap. So let me see. I will already go to that at the replay actually of Grantas. 'Cause he was doing some amazing laps in that second race. Which is the replay? That's the replay. He was doing that exit also in a certain way that is an option. Also, we had a great race, because actually we finished 1-2 in this one. But he was doing it in extremely not weird, but unconventional way. It's very tough to get right. So cutting a lot of first part, yeah. Committing it to the second part, bam. But now look how he's accelerating and he's taking all that curb. By the way, that green part, that's quite grippy here on the outside, right? The problem is that if you straighten out the car towards that green part too fast, well, now you have to come back onto the track, and now the problem is that you're coming back and you have to cut that curb, and it's very easy for the rear tire here to get caught onto that curb, and absolutely for the rear suspension to bottom out and just launch the rear into the air. It's very risky. But if you can get the line right in a way that that rear is not gonna jump, if you can get it nicely done smoothly like that, it will take it. And I mean, Grantas is so good at Suzuka. He has all those lines nailed. So he's going so early on the throttle here, and he's just cutting through that curve really nicely, and without a hitch, he can get it done very consistently. Right? Cutting all this, he's accelerating and straightening out car very early, and just getting that line there done nicely. What Mercs are doing is even more crazy. because the Merc is doing fully the grass line. Like they just they don't give a fuck about any curbs. They're just dipping the car fully through the grass. I mean, they are in the train, so it's probably more difficult for them to take the grass. But you can see there are a lot of cars that are just taking the grass here, and as much as as long as they're not gonna clutter the inside tire into the curb too much, the car will be fine. So it is something to experiment with if you're feeling lucky. But for example, like I said, I'm not a big SUZUKA expert myself, so I never got to practice that line really. I was always just going around like a normal human being. And like I said, if you just committed with how much you cut here, it's gonna enable you to here have the car positioned in a way that you're just ensuring that the second corner isn't gonna be requiring you to put a lot of rotation in the car and make the rear snap in the first place, right? But if you are confident that line could work for you, and then you can allow yourself to end up more on the outside of the track, then obviously you can attack those curves and carry more speed into them, because you're allowing yourself to end up a tiny bit wider. If you would end up wider, but you're not prepared to take that grass line, and maybe you're a bit scared of that, then bear in mind that if you take too much speed through the chicane itself, then you're gonna put your car very wide on the outside here, but then you have to come back very fast before that grass onto the track, and then you're gonna have the car that's pointing too much to the right, then you have to turn quite a lot through here, right? And then the truck is going down the hill, the rear snaps. Not good. So don't do it half-assed. If you fully commit through it, then you can fully commit through it like Grantas is doing, right? Fully eat into it early on the front. That's not Grantas, that's me. Fully commit into it early on the throttle, but then you need to make sure that you're doing this grass line correct, or do it in the way that you're taking it tighter, but then you have the exit nicely prepared, and you're making sure that here you're not gonna get any snap, because after all there's a second longest straight on the track here on that exit. It also depends on the car, which car can take that curb easy. And here we have a great example of me fucking up the entry and how much time you just lose if you overdo it a tiny bit. Because I completely missed this second apex. Anyway, let's take a look at some of those laps Grantas was doing, because he was flying at the end of that stint. We went with Jardier with different brake ducts this race, and it seems like a tire was a bit worse, because everyone back at the back of the field had a similar job that we had actually. But then George and Grantas, they had opened up the ducts, even though it was very cold, like very cold. They still had a bit of open ducts for this sort of scenario, and it seemed that even in those conditions, it just gave them the advantage with tire wear. Because initially Jardier and me and George had very similar pace, and at the beginning of the stint I got stuck behind another McLaren. Where am I here? I got stuck in another McLaren, so I couldn't fully push. But here I felt like I had still the same lap time in the car that I saw Grantas do ahead, but then my tires just dropped off, and Grantas just fucked off into the distance, and his lap times were getting lower and lower and lower. Let's see, 59.2 for example here. That was a really strong lap from him. So look how he's driving and how smooth he is. He's super smooth, and look how much speed he's taking into all those corners. It's amazing how nicely it's done. And obviously, all the exits need to be nice and clean as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you at SUZUKA to compromise your exits because it's all about the entry. But it's very important to understand that those corners at SUZUKA are very, very long, and it's important to be able to carry that speed deep into the corner, obviously without compromising that exit. But avoid the situations where you would have corners where you get the braking done early, then you're cruising through the corner with like a static speed, only then you're accelerating, right? You need to push the deceleration deep into the corner. Actually, if anyone on the chat, tell me, if you have like a replay, let's go after we can watch that Grand Assist lap. If we can go to that segment where I can get one of your replays from a viewer, and then I could take a look at your lap, and you can do this sort of public coaching session. Yeah, let's see if maybe someone else has it, because we did one for you last time around, so let's see if someone else has it maybe this time. Okay, but let's take a look at this Grand Assist lap. So look at the speed, yeah? Look how it's decelerating throughout the corner. Deceleration, 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 all the way to the apex. Bam! He's driving so smoothly. That's lap. Oh, she was so smooth, but I mean it's a stream, so you can rewatch it easily. But look especially at his speed, how it's always either deceleration or acceleration. The speed graph for him would be a very nice V shape all the time. It's either decelerating or accelerating, and he's just maximizing how deep into the corner is that deceleration, and the speed graph for him is as close to a V shape as possible, which you want to aim at. So that's just mathematically, like, that's the best way of getting the time out of the corner, because the deceleration is as deep into the corner as possible, and the acceleration is as soon out of the corner as possible, right? There's just deceleration, minimum speed point, and straight away acceleration. If there would be deceleration and there's some in the middle of the corner a phase where you're just cruising through it at static speed and only then acceleration, then there would be that big part in the middle where the average speed would be so low because of that, right? And all those things that we talked about here, right? So go into the corner quite early here, leave a car space there, aim for that curb here, leave a car space, brake throughout the whole thing, miss the curb a little bit, then come back to the inside again. On the throttle, keep it tight, transition of throttle, load up the car, use the curb, go on throttle, throw the car in, stabilize it on throttle, miss the... You can take the curb here, but like for example with Gant, as you can see, especially on this lap, you don't really need to take it because there's so much camber in the road, and just allows the car to grip up and stay stable really nicely. On the throttle, really rarely using all the track. Attacking the hairpin, using that camber on the inside of the corner, that is really allowing the car to grip up on the entry. From the outside, decelerating all the way through the corner, accelerating very early. And look how he very beautifully positions the car and places the car here on the exit in a way that all the rotation is done. Now he goes on the throttle, straightens out the car as much as possible, allows it to just pick up the traction. Perfect, beautiful. Very smooth through 130R, and just committed through the chicane. Brings so much speed in. Look how much speed he's bringing into there. Like the car is so fast still as he's clattering through that curb, and only now as it's past it slowed down, and obviously now there's a transition part, because the first part of the chicane, like what follows the first part of the chicane, is just the second part of the chicane. There's no acceleration zone that you need to worry about. There's no exit here that you need to prepare for. So we're just attacking the whole corner, and you just care about the transition and how you're gonna position the yourself into the second part. I was taking that first part just a tiny bit slower to ensure that here I can cut a lot, but I'm not gonna go wide on the exit because I'm not taking that curb or grass line at the exit, which I'd say that if you practice it and learn how to properly take it without making the car jump there, then obviously this is the way to go, because you just bring so much more speed through here. But I was a bit tighter to ensure that I'm not gonna do anything crazy here on the exit, right? So I'm taking it a tiny bit tighter, and then I have the exit that's so much more straight with missing that curb. But he's just where is that lap that he did? That's not the lap. There's that lap we were watching. He's just bringing it so much speed. He's a bit tighter for this one, but he can allow for it because he's opening up and he's accelerating so much earlier because he's taking that grass line. Very nice lap. He was flying at the end in that particular race. Okay, come on guys. Someone, does anyone else apart from Mr. Jerry has a replay for me to go through? So you can take a look at your lap, and yeah, you can, and I can take a look at it, tell you where to improve. It's a great opportunity, because obviously it wouldn't be like a full-fledged coaching session, but hey, you could get at least some of it for free, completely for free. And obviously some other people in the stream would highly benefit from it as well, because you'd be surprised how many things like people just do the same mistakes. So watching at one person's replay and properly explaining what's happening, then with that explanation suddenly others can relate to it and be like, hey, that's actually the thing that's happening to me as well. Oh, like that, yeah. When was Mr. Gorka driving? I mean, like, the pace in this race was still really good. So sure, he was a bit off on some of the laps, but it's not that I want a replay from someone slow, if you know what I mean. But for the purpose of the stream, it's better for me to use mistakes that are, let's say, easier for everyone to understand. And I don't necessarily want to take a look at some of those guys. Like I wanted to be a viewer. Come on, guys. And if nobody else wants, Mr. Jerry, I guess, has a replay ready again. I remember there was a guy last week, and he was saying that he's gonna prepare a replay for this time, but I don't think he's here. I don't think he's here. Pasta Boy Coaching. Yep. That's the race. That's the race. Well, just DM me on Discord. Just DM me on Discord. Yeah, I should probably say that. That would be a lot easier for people to understand. Just DM me on Discord. So if you want to send me a clear reply, that would be very much appreciated. Well, obviously I know that, you know, like last week we did Spa, so with Spa obviously there were a lot more people. Nah. There was a lot more people, you know, had a lap on hand ready, but obviously with it being Suzuka, it's a bit more rarely used track. Maybe not rarely used, but there are people who really enjoyed it, and there are people who absolutely hate it and despise it. Hello. Okay, so I see Mr. Jerry did provide me a replay, but we already did a... Mr. Jerry, he already did provide me a replay as well, so I see if nobody else is interested, we can take a look at his replay. Yeah, and that was the start of one of those races. Okay. Ferrari 296. Let's take a look. Oh, why is it pink? I know that HIMO colors, but those are not HIMO colors. Come on. Also, it's day, so let me change the graphic settings for the day. Oops. Bum. Okay. Let's get into it. So what are we looking at here at? 202, 201. Okay, 2 minutes 4. Decent, decent. I guess it's quality trim, right? Okay, let me just quickly look at it before I go into... Oh, look, I like pink as well, but this pink, oh come on, that's too much. And on the rims as well, nah. What's the proper pink? Look at this, okay? I'm gonna show you a really nice pink car. Wrong car. Give me my car. Bam. I think it was random pastable. Bam. That's the livery. That's the pink car. That's the pink you want. That's a really nice pink. Because you are using what pink? Something like that. Oh, that's no. That's too much. This one is a nice pink. Yeah, there are a lot of liveries. Anyway, I wanted to adjust the camera position for that car because I could barely see the steering wheel. Okay, that's enough.
Green light, give us all you can.
Okay, let's just quickly take a look at the lap and investigate. Okay, okay. That car looks very oversteery on throttle. Let me take a look at the lap before that, okay? Because there was big difference in times in all the laps. That's Hymo. Okay. It makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I see a mistake here. Whoops. Okay, chicane was decent. So, what problems are we looking at here? So, the problem is that there are a lot of moments where you are still applying a lot of steering while you're already accelerating or you're still braking. And you have a lot of moments where you're already accelerating, especially in the middle of the S's, right? You're gonna have a lot of moments where you're already accelerating and you're asking a lot of rotation of the car, and then it snaps because you didn't smoothly release the steering out of the corner. Or on the entry, there will be a lot of moments where suddenly you lift off the throttle and the front grips up, and then you're surprised, holy shit, the car has so much grip, it turns in, and then you need to correct it. Like, for example, here as you're getting into the first S, right? You get the car into the corner, you go off throttle, you brake, the front suddenly grips in a lot, and you realize, holy shit, that's too much, and then you have to correct it and get it back again, right? And look how we were talking about, it's all about nicely and smoothly bringing the speed into the corner and decelerating throughout it. Well, you did such an aggressive load transfer to the front here, that you overslowed the car. You had a moment, you had to gather it up, you had to re-accelerate so much earlier through the corner, right? So, I mean, the deceleration for you ended up already here, right? But you were supposed to decelerate throughout the entire corner. Maybe there at the end, just add a tiny bit rotation. But for you, it ended so early, right? I mean, if you have space, saving replays is a good thing. I have somewhere saved really old replays. Unfortunately, back in the day when I was on my laptop, I had a very small SSD on that, and I was really restricted with my space, so I had to delete a lot of replays from, you know, like 2 and 3 years ago, while some people still have replays from back then. So that's unfortunate. I still have few of them that I saved, but yeah, if you can, keep your replays, because they're sometimes good souvenirs for the future. Who knows what might be in the future? Those might serve a nice sort of reminders of old days, right? Anyway, really, a replay autosave is highly underrated. Don't worry. So, right here you have a moment where the load transfer that you did is catching you off guard with how much of an effect on the rotation of the car it has. And overall throughout the lap, there is gonna be tons of those moments where, sure, maybe the positioning that you got in the end on the given corner was not perfect, and the timing of when you're doing those inputs is not perfect, right? But like we were talking about it last week, it's more about understanding why that is and what caused that problem to be such an issue in the first place. So here the time loss is gonna come from, well, you ending up with the car that's like positioned wrong, or like it's slowed too early into the corner. But now let's analyze, well, why the fuck that happened. And now I can see that, for example, here, look how the car turns in, and it takes a long while for you to understand, oh, there's so much grip sand in the car. That's not what I asked the car to do. I need to correct that. And there's gonna be lots of moments like that later into the lab, we'll see, where it's you not having fully control over how much rotation you're asking out of the car. You're not fully aware of that. So I would, for you to improve, I would want you to focus more and try to get more of an understanding on a deeper level how your inputs are gonna influence the load transfer, how they're gonna influence the load on the given axle, be it sometimes the rear, sometimes the front, how your inputs are gonna change the car's behavior, and how they're gonna impact whatever the car is gonna do, and how it's gonna gain grip sometimes, right? Because right now it seems like you're sometimes getting almost surprised by, holy shit, the car is rotating a lot here, and the reaction from you is just a bit too late. Right? There's always that slide happening, and then the reaction that comes, it's delayed. Because for example here, you were expecting the car to rotate more in this particular instance. Here you thought that whatever you're doing here, that's enough. But this time you carried a tiny bit more speed, and you didn't put enough load on the front tires, or you just ended up with higher speed than you were expecting, and whatever happened here wasn't enough to get in the car into the corner early enough. And now you have to gather it up again, right? So the time loss again here is again by missing the corner and trying to sort out a messy entry, but at the end of the day, the problem is still that messy entry. And why did the messy entry happen? Because you were not fully in control how much front tires are gonna get loaded up, what sort of rotation in the car is gonna get out of it, right? So you need to work and experiment, really experiment more with how you're loading up the car, what sort of effect it has on the car, so you can use that knowledge for you to get just a deeper understanding and feel for what to do and how much of certain inputs you should input into the car to make it do a certain action, right? Because right now, sure, you're doing theoretically the correct inputs, but the amount of them isn't really fully controlled to the point where you would be fully in control of an actual action that the car is doing, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the lap time we're looking at is like a low or mid 2 minutes. Yeah. So right now, obviously the intentions of what you want to do, it's everything correct, but since there isn't, you're lacking yet that deeper understanding of how much input to do and how exactly that would change the car's behavior, you're always getting surprised, but oh shit, the car turned in more than I expected, or oh shit, the car turned way less than I expected. And then all the mistakes are piling in, because then you need to gather up the initial mistake, right? And then you're going on the throttle, and now you're not realizing that, well, that's too much for the given scenario, so then the slide comes and you have to correct that. And There was a snap here again, a little bit, but not too much. And here again, look how on the exit overall, that slide that comes to you is quite big and sloppy. It's almost like it's in like slow motion with the way you're catching it, because you're just not anticipating it in any way, which is understandable, just seeing the product of what I'm trying to explain, right? And here, try to get off that curb a bit sooner, right? Try to get off that curb a bit sooner, because you're crossing that that curb very late, and here it's very easy for the car to become weird and bouncy. So cross off that curb just a tiny bit earlier. Initial braking, yes, have the curb in the between the tires, but then get from that curb back on the road just a bit earlier, because then you can have a moment like that, or even a bigger moment than what we had here, right? That the car just bounced off that curb there. Go off it a tiny bit earlier. And here in the hairpin, yeah, you remember when we were talking about that? Obviously, you broke a tiny bit, maybe too late, right? But overall, you're trying to enter that hairpin quite wide, which is natural, like initial instinctive thing to do. That you want to open up the corner as much as possible. And sure, you are going from the very outside, right? But commit into the inside a bit earlier, because like I explained, there is camber there and there's grip, and if you get into that camber here on the inside, it's really gonna help you brake, because otherwise it's very easy to end up on the outside, and here suddenly the car, as getting deeper into the corner, will lose that grip, and you'll just go into huge unders here that you just have to wait for ages. So here everything is super clean, right? So this is, for example, an example of you getting it all very nice and clean, right? So the line is executed, right? The car is placed in all the proper places. Now the problem is just that it's not aggressive enough. There isn't any of this extra factor that would truly make it a fast corner for you, because it's just under the limit. It's just not pushed to the extremes in terms of the grip you're asking out of the rear tires, especially, right? For example, look at that exit. The line is really nice, everything is nicely in control, you're going on the throttle quite early, but look that, well, the car is not really struggling here for traction. Obviously you don't want to be sliding and losing that traction, but you can see that the car isn't necessarily really on the edge of grip, right? Just nicely accelerating out of the corner, and you can see how early into the corner it's already stabilized. Like from here, I mean, there's nothing here already that there's no problem that the car could have. You could either even tighten up the corner and the rears would easily take it, right? So here it's indication that, well, the car is so stable at the exit that there's actually a bit more room here to push, maybe bring in a tiny bit more speed into here and start accelerating even earlier, and then try to play with that grip at the limit on the exit, right? So it's all really nice and clean, but you're not really pushing. And obviously you could bring a tiny bit more speed in here. You could use more road. Here the entry could be a bit more aggressive, because initially here you didn't initiate that deceleration here, and you didn't make the car bite into the corner early aggressively. Here, because of that, because you loaded up the car in kind of a lazy way, and here it didn't properly grip up, and therefore you had to overslow the car. Because you overslowed the car, because you didn't aggressively rotate it initially as you got the car into the apex, because of that, well, you overslowed it. That's why the line is ended up being good, because you just overslowed the car. But because of that, again, the exit is so much easier, because the car is just traveling very slowly. It's not really at the edge of the grip, right? Exactly. So the minimum speed on the entry wasn't that bad. It could be a bit more, but here the very lazy entry and the lack of commitment into that line caused you to overall not initiate enough rotation initially, because it wasn't done initially. It had to be done later. So you are doing it later, but in a way that's just very costly. You're losing a lot of time, because you have to overslow the car, wait for the front end to bite. Sure, it bites, but the speed in the middle is just very poor. Because it's very poor, the exit in terms of track usage and your positioning here, well, it's not bad, but the car is just slow, so it's not at the edge of grip. It's not being at the edge of grip is not a bad thing. It's just an indication that there's just so much more that could be done there. That would end up being a lot faster. I would say 130 are not bad. You're cluttering the curve. It's a tiny bit, maybe too much. I don't know how good Ferrari is over there. It could be a tiny bit too much, but obviously it's a fast corner, so it's better to be easier there. Personally, I would be a bit more aggressive with it again, but as long as you can consistently get the car through there with no issues, it's fine. I mean, 130R is not that difficult of the corner really. It's more about timing here. Oh, definitely. If you feel like the car is just super nicely and stable and grips up, there's definitely a lot more in it. I mean, like, just take a look at that first test, right? You slow down so much, and you even brake, and you do it so early. Look how much grip there is. I mean, the car surprises you with the grip, because it just turns in so early. But because it surprised you and there was so much grip, then you had to do the correction, and then you're changing the balance of that thing that we talked about last time with the Audi, which was a lot more difficult car to handle, which made that problem even bigger back there. Here, that's not that big of an issue, but here, for example, here we have that you're changing the balance of the car in the middle, which is not optimum. Because first of all, the line is just bad in terms of the speed you're able to carry through here. But it's just you can see that you are changing the car's balance. Suddenly it's oversteery, understeery, again a lot of rotation. There's too much of it. Again, there was low rotation initially, then suddenly there's the point past which there should be max rotation, right? Oh my god, those wheels. The max rotation should have been here, and you should have been already accelerating. You missed it totally, so you're decelerating in a very desperate way and tightening up the corner as much as possible. But because of that, when you go on the throttle again, you get a snap, because you go from understeer to suddenly snap oversteer. Yeah, sure. Send me the replay. Send me the replay. That also avoid that. It's not needed. It's too much. I understand that when you're not braking anymore and you want the front tires to, you feel like front tires can take a tiny bit more steering angle. Sure, you can tighten up a tiny bit the steering. You can sometimes use it to stabilize the car because you're pushing the front tires to be over the limit of the before the rears are gonna be over the limit, so you're just stabilizing the car because of that. But you're just doing it in an extreme way. That's too much, right? So like, if this is normal, then you can tighten it up to being not even that, but like from this to this. You can maybe tighten it up to this momentarily, and then again go back. But doing all the way to here, that's totally unnecessary, and can cause a lot other problems. And you can see every single time the car has a little snap, there's from you one big correction and big change in the balance of the car, right? It's not like from the outside we're seeing the car that's like fluently going through the corner. You can even from the outside of the outside of the car from the third person, you can see those big slides and corrections. Suddenly there was low rotation, very high rotation, very low rotation, right? So you can see that those snaps of oversteer, you're not just dancing on the limit of grip, but from the outside the car is nicely settled in one line with one, let's say, constant rotation as you're dancing on the limit, but that rotation for you is changing, and that's not good, right? Because there is a snap, the car is again straight, there is a snap, the car is again straight, there is a snap again. There's too many of those balance changes. That's just like last time. You need to be more cautious of that and make sure that throughout the corner the balance is nicely and smoothly changed, and it's aligned with the speed, right? So as the speed is lowering, there needs to be more and more and more and more rotation. As the car is going faster and faster, less and less and less rotation. And you need to be really sure that this is nicely added in a smooth way. Because for you there are a lot of those moments where the balance changes suddenly in a very steppy way and multiple times for the corner. It's, again, the same as with that Audi, right? And like I see with those mistakes, for example, here and later in this is here, and overall here on the throttle where you're just not expecting the car to rotate, and in the spoon where here you didn't turn in or you didn't brake enough and initiate rotation here early and aggressively enough. You're not perfectly aware of when and how much the car is gonna gain or lose rotation, and why that is, right? So focus more on what exactly your inputs, how exactly your inputs influence the car's balance, right? And think about how exactly that happens, why exactly that happens, and that's gonna make you have way easier understanding of what exact inputs do you need to do to get certain balance or balance change out of the car, and then you're gonna be able to control it smoothly if you get that understanding, right? So just play with the car and just put a lot of thought into what exact inputs have what influence on the car's balance change and how you can influence its behavior, how you can make it lose grip, gain rotation, lose rotation, and then use that to smoothen out those lines to avoid those sudden balance changes in the mid corner, and I mean through all the phases of mid corner. Yeah, I see the DM. Let me load up another replay. Okay. Here, that should be that. That should be that. Yes, yes. Which lap am I looking at? The 58.5, yeah? Okay, let's take a look. Let me take one more look, okay? Because I kind of see what's happening. I need to just take a look at it again to gather my thoughts. Because I mean, pointing out just where the time is lost, that's easy. I'm trying to, you know, again, think about it at a deeper level, what might be the actual cause for you of doing that thing and losing the time in such way. Mm-hmm. Give me a sec, because I'm just... I see what's happening. I just want to ensure. So, the thing is that there is not enough braking input. You are releasing the brakes too quickly, too much. So there is a lot of... It's only by a little bit, yeah? But it's happening everywhere. Like in turn 1, it's not that big of an issue because it's kind of a corner that requires you to go off the brakes in a nice, smooth way throughout it. And there are a lot of places where you want to nicely go smoothly off the brakes. The last chicane, it doesn't really cost you much there. The turn 1 doesn't really cost you much there. But overall, there are gonna be other places on the track where, because you're gonna either release the brake too much too early, or sometimes also just it's not only gonna be about the braking input itself, but it almost seems as you're not loading up the car aggressively enough. Maybe aggressively is not the right word here, but sufficiently enough on the entry. You're not loading it up enough, so then mid-corner you have understeer, and because you're also fighting that understeer mid-corner with an excessive steering input, then you have moments that where that understeer mid-corner transitions into snap oversteer. So that's what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing the entry that's not committed enough without sufficient rotation. A lot of it comes from the brakes being released too early, and then you're relying too much on the front on the rotation that's coming just from the front axle alone, and the rotation from the rear axle isn't taken deep enough into the corner, right? So, like I said, in turn 1, it's not that big of an issue because you're looking for a nice, smooth brake release throughout the whole thing, and that's what you're doing. And you're nicely adding, releasing the brake through the corner and letting the car get into that groove naturally as it would do in turn 1, because that's just how the line works here. And the car nicely gets into that late apex. So here throughout the entry, it doesn't cost. It doesn't really cost too much. I mean, you in this particular lap you did ended up quite a lot on the inside, and you hit that curb a little bit. It compromised the exit maybe ever so slightly, right? But overall, it's a good turn 1. It's a decent turn 1. But now I feel like there's just not enough rotation induced into the car, or it's sometimes added in just a tiny bit too lazy and almost too smoothly. I see that you're trying to be very smooth, but sometimes you're doing it overly smoothly on the entry in a way that you are not making the car rotate sufficiently into the corner. You're not committing it enough into the corner, into the line that you want it to take, and then with the brakes being already released, or not enough load being on the front tires, then you get the understeer and you're trying to fight with the steering input. It's a very subtle thing, but it's subtle everywhere and it adds up. So for example, here I feel like you overall had to lift quite early, and you were going with that little brake input throughout the corner, and then you start accelerating. I don't know, for me it feels like it was very like overly too smooth, and there wasn't enough aggressive rotation put into the car here that would allow you to take even more speed through it. You could load up the car even more, have even more grip if you do it just a tiny bit more aggressively, right? Just load it up more. But here it's not that big of a braking zone, right? But it's more of just loading it up more aggressively thing, which then will also connect to that braking input thing. And then, for example, with that transition, right? It's nice and smooth, and the car gets into that line, but it doesn't really rotate, or like during the transition, it doesn't really. It's like it's not a sudden change of direction in a transition. Well, in the transition, you can allow yourself, obviously, as much as the rear tires can handle it. That's the point where you are changing the balance of the car from one way to another, right? And there is a point at which, you're not accelerating, you're not decelerating, you're just doing a big transition, and the tires are just doing the work laterally, being loaded up maximum to one side and then to another, and you're almost like wasting time doing it extremely smoothly, like overly smoothly, to the point that the car only really kind of gets loaded up properly here, but then it's already too late, because now it's gonna start getting started washing out to the outside. let me go to the replay from that race 1 again, when I was showing my 130R, right? That 130R is gonna be an extreme example, and it is 130R from all the corners, but I just have it right now in the back of my head. And bear in mind, 130R is the type of corner where you can take it smoothly, you can take it aggressively, but you can so visibly see two different driving styles, even though they don't have particularly great effect there, or effect on the car, but you can clearly see what I would call a more aggressive input that would just load up more aggressively. So look how aggressive I am on the 130R entry, right? Bam! Just the car just turns in. It's suddenly just I turn in, I go off the throttle, I downshift. It's all with snap of the fingers at one point, and the car just gets loaded up into the corner. And obviously I'm not doing that too much over what the car can do. I know what the car's limit is, and I do it to that limit, so it's not like a full lift, or I'm not turning even more and like totally throwing the car into a spin, right? But I am loading it up in a really aggressive way. And sure, bear in mind, the 130R is the type of corner where you can also be smooth, so that's not an issue, but I at least visibly you can see the difference, right? While, for example, Grantas is a lot smoother with that. He's staying in 6th gear. I mean, he's still loading it up sufficiently, but for you, if I go back and you take a look at that those S's, that replay, yeah, the car is just not getting sufficient rotation early in the early as you turn. So you see, you're loading it up really smoothly, but that's overly smoothly. And now you're doing it again very smoothly, and you can just see how, because here that transition wasn't done enough early, and here the car should be already nicely aggressively rotated. Now you're slowly slowing down, but the car is just not turning, and you have to wait and wait and wait. Where you should be already, the car should be able, like you are in the middle of the road here, right? You're not going wide out of the first S, so here you should be able to do an aggressive transition, and the car should be able to nicely climb that curb and follow it. But because there wasn't enough load on the front tires initially put in, right? Just initially, it didn't have that initial nice bite that would change its line. And really make it dig into the corner, and then because it wasn't done initially, it has to be done later into the corner, right? Now, how we can connect it with the brake input? Here the same, right? Look how you're getting the car into the corner, but then you're going completely off the brakes. You're using only the front axle. Think about it. The brake is really only used initially here. Now you're already off the brakes, and now you're tightening up the steering, and only now you really want the car to use the front end and really rotate, right? Only right now. But this is already after you've done the deceleration with the braking, and you're actually doing a tiny bit little throttle input, and you're steering quite a lot with the front tires. You're going over their front limit, presumably to stabilize the car. Like I said, you can sometimes go over the limit of the front tires with the steering, almost Alonso style, back from his Renault days, but that car was made to do that, okay? And the tires were made to do that. So that's a different story. But it is the same technique. It's just that for Alonso in F1, it was something that made sense and was efficient. For you, it's not efficient. For us, it's not efficient. It's a technique, and you can use it to stabilize the car, but it's not the way to drive it. But what's happening right now, just at the point where now the car should dig into the core and have a lot of rotation, and you would like the rear tires to be at the limit because the car is rotating, so you want the rears to be at the limit because it's rotating. If the rears are on the limit while it's rotating, that's the peak rotation. Well, now you're creating a situation where there's not enough load laterally on the rear tires, while the front tires are past their limit. So you have a front limited car in a very subtle way, but just slightly it is. And you need to wait and wait and wait with the understeer, and then suddenly it grips up as you're releasing the steering. You go on the throttle and it snaps, right? Because you had that understeer that you were waiting in the middle of the corner for. Again, everything we're talking about here, it's very, very subtle, because we're talking still about the 58.5, right? So sure, there is another like 7/10 in this setup. Is this a HIMO setup? I think it could be. At least it looks like it drives like one. We have another faster setup. It's George's setup. Okay, so it's that setup. I think George's setup is the same as whatever we did as HIMO later. Anyway, it is very, very similar, nevertheless. Yeah. But I'm just thinking in terms of what lap time the setup can do, right? So there's what? There's like 7 tenths in it, maybe 8 on like a very, very nice lap in this particular set. Right? So it's very subtle how, but it's still there. How there initially here, yes, you are braking, but you're very tentative with the steering. But sure, you don't want to fully turn in and go over the limit of the front tires as you're braking. Sure, but I feel like it's just not. Like you're not doing enough of a job by with keeping the load on the front tires, and then maybe to stabilize the car, or you're just used to steering that much, which is too much. You're going over the limit of the front tires. The car gets front tires limited, it stabilizes, it doesn't have enough rotation mid-corner, that you are handling by overall having less minimum speed, and accounting for that understeer that you're used to, right? So it's not, we're not seeing you going completely off the track and understeering off it, right? It's very subtle lack of front end grip that it's there, but ultimately it is costing you, right? That right here, there's not enough front end in the car, just mid-corner, and then it snaps, because it goes from understeer to oversteer. So, if there was... Let's go back to that Grant Assist lap from the race, because that's the best example I have. If you would minimize your steering input just a little bit, but then try to use brake more to keep the load on the front tire, to combine the aggressive initiation of that rotation, and then deep into the corner keep that load on the front tires. Because sometimes when you try to do the more aggressive entry, then you straight away stabilize it with either releasing the brakes very early or going a lot and cranking up the steering a lot and stabilizing the car that way, right? So sometimes there's not enough a commitment on the entry altogether. Sometimes you commit initially quite well, but then you let off the brakes altogether and stabilize it with the steering too much by going over the limit of the front tire, right? So look how here Grantas is a tiny bit more aggressive even with the downshift into the corner and with higher speed, I think, than you. I mean, this is a race pace. It could be, I don't know. I mean, it's old tires. It's what? It's 26 year lap old tire. It's lower conditions, so lower grip. It's race fuel. Different scenarios, right? But I think he was able to carry. Was it 160 for you? Or maybe that was on that Ferrari lap. I don't know. But then look how on this transition, right? He's going aggressive on the brakes as he's turning in, and the car bites straight away. There is really that bite in the corner, and then he keeps the brake ever so slightly, just for a split second, to make sure that that car really digs into that line, and the car really nicely climbs that curb, right? And now he's already able to accelerate without the car really washing out wide, just nicely follows that line that he chose, right? While for you, because that entry just there wasn't enough commitment there, and enough rotation put into the car initially, it didn't dig into the corner, it didn't bite enough. And there was no effort with the inputs done to make the rear rotate, and the car just kind of was really stable on the entry, and it didn't dig into the corner enough, it didn't bite. The rear was stable, and then you had to fight with the little understeer here on the exit and wait with the throttle. Well, for him, you can see how the car is just nicely following the line here. Goes on the brakes while steering, and he's making sure that the rears are on the limit with trail braking, and he's keeping that brake on. Look how he's keeping on the brakes throughout the corner, making sure the rears are rotating, and there is no excessive steering here. He's steering a lot. Granted, is overall steering a lot, but he's not going overly over the limit of the front tires in terms of slip angle. He's using a lot of steering throughout the corner, but at the same time he's using the brakes, making sure that those fronts are loaded up, that the car rotates throughout the corner as they are loaded up, and that all four tires are on the limit, not only the fronts, right? Because for you created that situation with just not enough initial rotation, that the rears didn't get to their limit enough, and then after initial entry, you overstabilize the car by not keeping the load on the front, which made you just have lower minimum speed in the middle of the corner than what it would be otherwise possible. And because it was also an understeer, then as you're releasing the steering, suddenly the front grips up, and as you're releasing the steering, the front suddenly grips up again, because it was over its limit. Then suddenly it grips up, you're already on the throttle, rear goes loose, and the car snaps, right? While this is already the car that's on the limit with all four tires on the limit, both fronts and rears. As he's going on the throttle, he knows exactly the moment when the rear are gonna go past their limit. Well, that's when he's going on the throttle, because if you are already on the limit, the moment you ask for a bit more, that's when you go past it. For you, the moment when you go over the limit of the rears again is when it snaps, but you don't know when it snaps. It's just gonna happen at some point, which you're not fully in control of, right? With the given driving approach. That's a funny thing of being at the limit with the rear end, that the more you are at the limit with the rear end, the more in control of it you actually are, because you are directly in control over what's happening with the rear end of the car. If you're avoiding that and then at some point it goes over the limit, then you have to react to that. Let me go back to it. Well, if you're making sure that you keep the rear at the limit, you are actively making sure that you're just actively monitoring what the hell is going on with the rear axle, right? And when it's on the limit, and you're on the limit of the rear grip, you ask a bit more, and you know straight away what to expect. Right? So initially, yes, there is an entry, but then you release the brake a lot, you crank in the steering a lot, you make the car here front tires limited, then you go on the throttle and suddenly it snaps. So there's time loss both on the in the mid corner, because there could be just more grip here, and on the exit a little bit because the snap costs you both in acceleration, which here isn't that vital, but it compromises your track position because you have to counter steer. Now you're gonna end up a tiny bit wide, and the next corner is compromised, right? Okay, with that braking, because this is gonna be more of an actual braking zone. And again, you're releasing that brake too early, and you're not bringing the rears into on the limit deep into the corner enough, right? So yeah, here in slow motion. So as you're braking, you can go on the brakes also a lot faster, like really stomp on them. You are nicely releasing the brakes, but then look how fast you're going with the brakes. Yeah, you should be like around maybe 60-70% still, and then 50 while you're already almost completely off it, right? But what you're doing, you're cranking up a lot of steering, so you are again stabilizing the car too early, too soon into the corner, and relying way too much on the front axle of doing all the rotation, and it's just gonna cost you ever so slightly, with front grip being overall reduced, and the car is gonna be ever so slightly too much in its stable state at the point where after which you're still gonna go back from the stable state to the unstable state as you're accelerating and going on throttle, rotating the car on the throttle, right? It's gonna be extremely subtle thing, but it's gonna make it more difficult to control. Like for example here on throttle, right? Because it's stable in the middle because it has been stabilized with the understeer from the front axle, but then you're going back from stability to instability, so it snaps. Well, to avoid the snap, you have to be on the actual limit of the rear mid corner. If that's not the case, then it's gonna snap. If it's already on the limit, you're gonna be able to feed in the throttle and then in progressive way go even more past that limit, or just stay on that limit, or actually make sure to not go over that limit at all and just bring it back and make it settle down. Being on the limit gives you so much more options. So make sure that as you're going into the corner, reduce your steering input, and make sure that you're rotating that car right here, just before the apex, more with the brake itself. And that will also reduce your front tire wear in the long run. A lot. Here as well, it's less noticeable in slow speed, less noticeable in low speed, as the ABS can go really crazy here. But you would be able to brake a tiny bit deeper and carry more speed into it if you would be on the brakes a bit more, and rather than cranking up that thing that much, be on the brakes a bit more. It's not bad, but just subtle things. Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of that comment with the Grantas being wider, sure, sometimes he's gonna be a bit wider, but I don't think the line. Sure, the lines are gonna matter, but I'm talking more about the lines are gonna be easy to fix, and you can see someone's fast lap and just replicate the line. But the problem is not you choosing the line. The problem is that sometimes you do something wrong that puts you on that wrong line, even though you didn't really want to, or you kind of want to, but you're not able to, like others. Well, because others sometimes have just more grip at their disposal because they're driving in a way that just generates more grip in the car. So changing your way of driving, it doesn't have to necessarily follow his inputs one-to-one, because if you can watch my driving, I mean, my inputs are way more erratic, but I'm overall driving in a way that ensures that I load up the front as much as I can. Although I have skill issue at SUZUKA itself, so it looks a bit more messy. Yeah, it's quite a big good stream. I think, like from the spoon, from the hairpin, the expansion from the hairpin, that was really good. Like, we went through the S's quite quickly, and I didn't really talk much about the S's. But then from the hairpin onwards, the stream was really nice. Okay, so my inputs. Well, they are, like I said, a lot more erratic, and but bam, the car loaded up, bam, the car loaded up, right? And I'm playing a lot with the steering. And here, for example, well, I didn't brake much. I wasn't using much brakes, but I was at least ensuring that initially here I initiated quite a lot of rotation in the car, and then I didn't feel like there was more that I needed. Sure, I tapped the brakes a tiny bit less than Grantas was doing on the other laps. This is completely different line, different approach, right? That I'm taking here. I'm not carrying as much speed through the corner, but at least I'm making sure that I'm not overly stabilizing the car, and from the rotation that I initiated in, I'm making sure that at least I keep that rotation going, and I'm not over stabilizing the car. And you can see how much less steering angle there is for me. And this is race pace, opening laps. I don't know the grip levels, so I'm not fully pushing the into the corner, so my brake input is also lowered, right? But this is also less grip, race fuel, so the car is more rotated at the rear, so I don't need as much brake to initiate similar rotation, right? But you can see how much less steering I'm using, yet there is sufficient rotation that I'm being able to out of the car. I mean, overall, I'm extremely cautious with how much speed I'm carrying into those corners, because it's just early laps. I'm just trying to get into it. And overall, I wasn't aggressive with how I'm going here because I don't want to go over track limits, right? But look at the steering input. There's so little of it. And when the fronts are loaded up and the rear follows and rotates, I make sure that I don't overly stabilize the car for it to suddenly become front tires limited. Because when the car becomes front tires limited, it's all over. It's just understeer that it's difficult to get out of, right? So try to drive in a way that you're gonna avoid all the moments where the car becomes front tires limited. Either be neutral or rear tires limited. And sure, front tires limited will give you stability. Sometimes there are moments where it's okay to induce a little bit of stability when you know that you can get away, like in turn 1, for example, right? Whether you want some stability in mid-corner, so there you can ensure that, okay, now I'm gonna go off the brakes, maybe go even on, you don't go on throttle here, but completely release the steering, really make sure that the car is stable, because you know that you're gonna be able to get still sufficient turning through the long turn into the apex. But you know that you are able to stabilize it here, but then get that second bite in and make the rear rotate again, right? And now that I'm able to get the rear rotated again and go on the throttle with while the rear was on the limit mid corner, right? So I was able to stabilize it, because there's just so much time to gather the whole situation up again and change it up. So steer more aggressively, and it's not necessarily about the change of the very input, but think about it more as load the car up. And don't think about it in the input as like raw input thing. Like sure, at the end it is gonna change your input, but in the back of your head when you're thinking about it, don't necessarily think about it as only input thing, because it's important to always have the back of in mind what's actually happening with the car and why you're doing those inputs, right? Think about it as how you're loading up the car and how it's changing the balance of the car in terms of stability, the car being neutral or the car being on the limits of the rear tires, right? So I want you to be more aggressive with how you load up the car, be it the steering, be it the brake, be it how you go off throttle. Be more aggressive with it, put more load into the car, get sufficient turning early, because a lot of the times there isn't sufficient rotation initiated early, and then when that's done, make sure that that initial rotation that you've initiated is followed up upon with the load being kept on the front tires as much as possible, and you not overstabilizing the car in the mid corner, robbing it of that rotation that you've given it in the first place, right? So initiate rotation, put sufficient load on it to really maximize how much rotation you can get at given speed. With the load, put it on the front tires, and make sure that through as deep into the corner as possible, you put as much load on that front tires and you keep the rear as much on the limit, and you don't get the car too much front tire limited mid corner. And you're gonna achieve that, yes, by lowering your steering input, using a tiny bit more brake deeper into the corner, but that's just those inputs again, like we were talking with the first replay. I think here it's important, as always, to understand it's not the inputs that are the problem. The inputs, the wrong inputs, are just the product of you loading up the car incorrectly, and that's what I want you to change. That's just gonna result in you doing different inputs. What exactly those inputs are gonna look like, that depends on you, because everyone has different driving style and everyone does it a little bit differently. I drive differently, George drives differently, Grantas drives differently. You also will drive it a little bit differently. So that's why I'm telling you, think about it a lot more in a way of me wanting you to load up the car more aggressively and keep the rears on the limit more deeper into the corner. You're gonna achieve that most probably, well, for sure, by keeping more brake deeper into the corner and overall lessening your steering inputs. How exactly that's gonna look, that depends on you trying to figure it out, seeing what works best for you, right? But remember that I'm not gonna completely change your driving style, but the approach to the corner and overall thinking about how you control that balance of the car, that has to be tweaked a little. Any more track specific stuff that maybe we can point out there? Yeah, no worries. Overall, it seems like it's also the product that you have with the exits now that I want to touch on. Well, you have overall the exits that are, well, quite stable, and I think it could be the case of exactly what we were talking at that spoon with the Ferrari, that since you have the overall lower apex speed, because you're maybe not using enough, you just have the tire, the car that has lower grip because it's using fronts on, it has fronts on its limits, but the rears are under the limit, right? So the overall potential of the car to rotate it isn't used. If there is more of the car's grip still remaining that could have been used, that means that overall apex speed could be higher. If your apex speeds and minimum speeds through the corner are lower, that means you're gonna overall have a actually easier time accelerating out of the corner. So probably if you tweak your entries, the exits will also differ, and you'll find yourself more in the situations where since you were at the limit of rear grip and the snap, like now you have sometimes the snap, but usually you straighten out the car before that happens. Sometimes it does happen, like in those S's we saw, but not always, right? And a lot of the times you'll have the exit that's quite easy, but the car isn't really struggling for traction in a way. But if you bring that rotation deeper into the corner and have the rears at the limit deeper into the corner, well, that's gonna follow into the exit. That's now gonna also become not slower in any way, but more difficult. There's gonna be a bit more management that will have to be done, because you'll have to just manage how you're going back from the car, from the rear axle being at the limit mid corner, and now you're gonna have to smoothly transition it from mid corner to the exit, as it's starting to do more and more work in longitudinal direction as you're putting more and more power, and less in lateral direction. But obviously, as you tweak the entries, that's gonna automatically change. But overall, it's really nice. Like, you can see, the line is decent. You turn in quite early, but it is mostly the line thing, that you just ended up with the car pointing quite a lot to the right still, as you're already accelerating. It's just too much, and it snaps, just because it's just too much for the car to handle. But with the same speed, you could have a car already pointing to the more to the left, and then the rears would be perfectly at their limit. They would be able to do the job both laterally and longitudinally, and you wouldn't get that snap. But to be able to have the car at the same point, at the same speed, pointing more to the left, well, you would have to tweak the entry, because you would have to get more sufficient rotation all the way to this point, right? While even though while on the track guide I was saying you have to be really cautious how here you're getting off the curb, it can get really sketchy. Well, here the rear on the entry for you is not at the limit at all, and then you're adding rotation only with the steering, but it didn't rotate the car sufficiently, so when you're going on the throttle, the car, there was just not enough rotation on the entry done, so it has to be on the exit or mid corner. And since you're already accelerating and there's lack of grip on the exit, it snaps. You control it nicely, but it's still a time loss. I mean, the overall meta right now in ACC is just lowest preload. We rarely use preload. I mean, if you're really having trouble with off throttle oversteer, you could add some clicks. Like, I would say up to 80 preload, it will work fine. But then just past that, you're just getting into the zone where it's too much like on-off, and yeah, it's not gonna be nice on the exits. But I think you can use a bit of preload. It's just that also cars right now, you can get stability in such a dumb and easy way with bump stops or rake, that there's no need for fine-tuning with diff. Just keep it lowest. But if you feel like you need a tiny bit, you can use like up to 80, let's say. Why not? Yeah, the diff preload setting in ACC is a big mystery for everyone. It's like, how the hell does it even work? Because it gives you such mixed results sometimes. Sometimes it feels like it doesn't really sometimes it feels like it doesn't really have any effect altogether. Sometimes it feels like it stabilizes the car on the entry and then also makes it understeer on exit, even though it's supposed to lock up the diff and let it rotate. It's weird. I've seen a lot. I'm not really into Motec, but I've seen a lot of people complaining that from all the readouts in the Motec, it seems like almost diff is broken in the game, like it doesn't work properly. I don't know. I didn't look into it myself, but I can tell you that it's definitely an area where some people think physics-wise it could be improved a lot. Plus we don't really have any actual like coast ramp or power ramp settings of differential. They're just whatever comes from the factory, and we can only adjust the preload, which is very little. With the preload you're not gonna do much. It's just for fine-tuning. And so if you want fine-tuning, like I said, low values currently in 1.9 work, but I wouldn't go to high values. It seems like they will not really bring any stability that you can that's gonna be like usable in the setup. Just gonna make it understeer for no reason. Okay, guys, do you have any questions? I'm just gonna put that replay again back in the background. Does anyone has any questions? Because I would like to wrap up the stream. Yeah, sure. I can see that. No worries. I can see that indeed. No problem. Just remember that very race, me and Jardier, we were not prepared well. We were just grid and go, and I have a big skill issue at SUZUKA, and Jardier was not enjoying his time at SUZUKA either in LFM Pro, especially. So Grant was like really properly on the pace that particular weekend. So definitely take a look at his driving, because he was driving really well, really well. Whee! Little oversteer on the entry there. Ooh, okay. So yeah, I can send you that replay in the DM. What track next? I don't know what's the next track. Well, I don't know what even is that. I don't even know what that is. What is a Simagic brake reactor? haptic pedal reactor. I mean, I guess for like ABS rumble or whatever. I don't know. I never used anything like that. I mean, you can feel ABS in the steering anyway. The thing is that for sim racing application, I think it's just too gimmicky, you know. Like, you don't get an actual value out of it, because it's just an effect. Like it's not anything that's actually happening in the braking system. That's like acting against you. It's just an effect telling you that something is happening, but you get the same effect from the steering wheel. Plus, without it, you just have nicer and smoother control theoretically over your brake pedal, right? So if you would like that feel, having that feel in your foot, sure, you might try that, but I think it would be way too gimmicky to really get the value out of it. Oh yeah, if the next track is Kailami, then we're definitely doing Kailami next week. So this week's track, I mean next week's Thursday because it's still Sunday, but upcoming week's tracks are gonna be SUZUKA and Zolder, right? So we did the stream at SUZUKA now, and the LFM website is not loading for me, but if you're saying it's Kailami, it's probably Kailami. Come on, work! Oh, the website is super slow right now. Anyway, it is gonna be whatever LFM is following. And if someone says it's Kailami, Kailami is a very common track, so we're probably just gonna do a Kailami. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just a chill Sunday evening stream. Understandable that not suddenly everyone will show up, and obviously not everyone probably even knows that I am streaming, so over time I think if I can do streams like that every week, why the hell not? More people will start to watch. I mean, there are a lot of people, quite a lot of people watching, for example, live stream, which was Spa. Obviously, Spa was really popular. I think with Kailami we can also get quite a decent amount of people watching. And first I need to prepare something for Kailami, because I don't have any recent Kailami replay myself. Like, the last time I drove Kailami was SRO. That had to be like half a year ago. Oh, Kailami sprint, spine for long. That's great. That's gonna be great. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the little track guide and the little replay analysis we later did. And yeah, see you next week, and it's gonna be the same. We're doing Kailami next week. If anyone wants to prepare, like knows that, hey, this kind of stuff he's doing on the stream, I want to give my replay and let him and let me tell what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, if you want that, like, you know, I'm just gonna ask on the stream. Anyone wants to send me a replay, just send it to me in DM. If you maybe already know that you're gonna be there on the stream and you have it prepared pre-stream, you can send it even before the stream. We're probably gonna do it Sunday evenings like that, so it's probably gonna be Sunday evening next week as well. I mean, that's gonna be 7 days time, right? That's a lot of time till next week, but it's gonna probably be the same every single time. If you want a little coaching like that, let's say, you can have a replay prepared for the stream, and I'm gonna be happy to have a look at it, because then everyone else can learn from it. Oh, sorry, I missed that last question. Let me actually read through it. So, I'm the most erratic with the inputs. I think George has that weird thing where he tightens up the steering mid-corner. Where is he? Where's George? There's George. So George through the S's will have that weird thing where just on the apex he'll tighten up the steering. Just a little bit, right? So he's not going like full log, but he'll have that thing that sometimes mid-apex he'll just tighten up the steering. Not every time, but for example this next corner probably, just mid corner, bam, yeah, he tightens up. That's George's thing. I'm gonna be extremely aggressive with the throttle, while for example Grantas is driving in a way where he's not extremely, but a lot more progressive with the throttle. And he's not gonna have like throttle inputs going up, down, up, down, up, down. Well, it is the case for me. I mean, I'm doing it in a subtle way and in a way that's not changing the balance of the car as I'm doing it. But like that's just my way of adjusting the throttle. I do fast little changes, while for him he's going on the throttle in a nice progressive way. I have that weird thing with the throttle that I do, that for example, if I go to me, my initial throttle application is gonna be always extremely aggressive, and then I'm gonna, I mean, that was just me sliding overly there. But you can see how with my throttle application, which is gonna be aggressive initially, then I'm just gonna maybe let off, then add a bit more again, then let off again. I used to do it in a lot more aggressive way, right? And it was so much more prevalent. I think that's the word. And my FFB isn't necessarily high, it's just that I have my hands on the steering wheel extremely light, and then I just, whenever something happens, I let the steering wobble with my hands, and only when it's necessary I do the input. So my hands easily follow whatever force feedback is doing. And then I also have that weird thing with my steering that I do a lot of micro adjustments with the steering, because that's just my way of trying to feel whatever is happening with the front axle. So think about it. If you're moving your wheel, right? If you're moving it, then it's easier for you to change the change of resistance. Rather, if you would just keep your hands stuck in one position and then try to feel out if there is any change in the force that's acting against you, right? That's the theory behind it. So I'm just playing a lot with my steering as I'm braking, as I'm turning in. There's just a lot of corrections, a lot of things happening. I'm also on the brakes. I'm going a lot of times like on off. You could see that, as I was saying, I was very tentative going into Degeners. I mean, look for example here, that initial kick of throttle, that's the thing I do always. Bam! I always initially kick the throttle hard to make sure that when the rear is on the limit, I really want to make sure that as I go on the throttle, I just make sure that the rear is on the limit, and then I go back with the throttle and I control how I feed it in. Just to make sure that the car is rotating on throttle when I want it to rotate on throttle. I always make that initial punch with the throttle. For me, it's very aggressive. Obviously, it's always made in situations where I know I can afford to just punch the throttle like that. I mean, I would have to go through the replay to find certain examples of things happening. But you can see how I'm playing with the brake as well on the entry, up, down, up, down. For me, inputs are very erratic. For George, they're gonna be somewhere in between, and George is always gonna have extremely minimized steering input when he can. Sorry, that's Grantas. George is gonna have a very limited steering input when he can, and then sometimes mid-corner he's just gonna crank it up and then minimize it again. And George overall will stay on the brakes quite deep into the corner a lot and then release them a lot. That's gonna be George. Grantas is gonna be, like I said, somewhere in completely on the other end, where he's completely super smooth with everything. Jarrier is gonna be sort of like me. Whoops, that's replay bugging out. Sort of like me, that he's gonna play a lot with the inputs, and especially he's gonna play a lot with the brake and throttle pedal on the entry to control the car's rotation. Like at the end of the day, some driving style is gonna probably be superior to other, but it's just opening another can of worms. What force feedback setting I'm using? I have like, why am I going into graphic settings? Like 40 gain, and the wheel is on 17 Newton meters. So the wheel is 17 and gain is 40. I think it should be higher. I lowered it recently, but it should be higher. Yeah. So I have 39 and 17 Newton meters. So let me see. Like it's nothing crazy actually. I mean, like, race 2, that's the replay. Like, from the start, for example, here, I mean, my inputs are just going crazy because I'm just used to controlling the car in that way, that I'm just overly active with my inputs. Like here, for example. I mean, like, what the fuck is going on? But if the car can handle it, why the hell not? That's just the way I drive. Okay, enough of that. Time to actually wrap it up. Bam, I'm a Porsche. Oh my god. So thank you everyone for watching. and yeah, see you next week at Kailami.